Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows. The year is 2021. The name of the show is Babylon 5. This is Season 1, Episode 19. It's called The Voice in the Wilderness Part 2. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, even more so than last time, I'm convinced that it feels like it was just chopped in half because the ship that came through the gate, was the plot that came from it was great. I actually loved the Sinclair and this Captain Pierce back and forth over what to do. I thought all that stuff was wonderful. There's good Babylon 5 political intrigue. All that stuff was great. But there's a big ship coming through the gate. Cliffhanger. Come back next week. It was like, it's just a big Earth ship.
I don't think we saw the ship coming through on the first.
No,
half.
we didn't. No, we just saw Garibaldi say, "What the hell."
Right. And this one, we see the ship, and then he says, "What the hell?"
Yes.
That's why I was confused.
They do it slightly edited differently because we get a previously on for this because it's a two-parter, and then at the end of the previously on, it sort of just runs into what's going on here. So I thought there was some really interesting stuff in this episode. I kind of like the big ideas at play.
I did too.
Which is essentially just to sort of do the broad strokes of the sci-fi stuff here. The planet down below is going to blow up. It's going to, as Tara's dog is hacking in the background. But the planet down below is going to blow up, and they've brought this alien up to the station. He's in medbay, and it becomes clear that he's dying, and that's seemingly what started the first tremors that were the first reason why they even started looking at the planet. Was because of him, his health deteriorating, because he was the one at the center of the machine. He was the one controlling it, which is kind of what we guessed more or less, is that he was this the brain of the operation. And as soon as they said that, I actually kind of realized what another character was going to do immediately. As soon as it was like, someone needs to be at the center and he's dying.
I wonder who it's going to be.
Yeah, if only we had someone who was spiritual, who was looking for his divine ending or a purpose. So obviously Delen's friend Dral was going to be the one to go down, which is not a complaint. It's because honestly all of it played wonderfully. I thought that stuff.
Yeah, I like this episode a lot too. I think I like the really high science fiction concept here. It's odd because first of all, Ron Canada shows up, and I love him from Deep Space Nine.
Which one is Ron Canada? Who's he?
He's Captain Pierce.
He's Captain Pierce. Okay. Yes.
And so it was good to see Ron Canada, and I like. His ship is called the Hyperion, which is also the name of a book series by, I think, Dan Simmons. I read it a long time ago, but like a really, really pretty famous science fiction book. It's very much like I don't know how to describe it. It's like Canterbury Tales, but far future. Humans have a different. They're all called together to go on a journey to see the god of pain called the Shrike, and in hopes that they would receive something from him, but more than likely most of them, if not all of them, are going to end up dying when they get there. Anyway, it's a very good book, and each story is very unique. And one of the stories actually reminds me a bit of the character, or what Dral goes through in this. So there seems to be some influence from that book, I think, on this episode, but it is a very good science fiction story. So I did really enjoy this, and I liked making all the connections.
I think what I loved about this is this was kind of like a counterpoint. I think this two-parter, particularly the back half, this the second episode, but this two-parter is kind of a counterpoint to Science Importance in a way, and I feel like this one is the more hopeful side of it, and I say that for a couple of different reasons. One is that we'll get into some of the other details of the rest of the aliens that show up and the fight that goes on above the planet and all that, but it becomes clear that this planet, the technology it has and the weaponry it has is very advanced. It's way beyond anything that any of the current races in the system have. And I kind of had this feeling that because towards the end of the episode when Dral takes over and he goes into the machine and it's very Metropolis, standing in kind of the machinery, and he sends a message, kind of like in the last episode how this alien was able to project. So this is clearly part of the tech. That's just us beaming up the image to someone. He sends this message up to Sinclair, but also everyone who's in the conflict up above. and ends the conflict, and we'll get to the conflict stuff, but he talks to Sinclair and says, we're entrusting you, the machine and I are entrusting Babylon 5 and the council of the different races to basically police this planet and make sure no one ever comes down. And anyone who does come down, until the time is right, when the purpose that this planet and the tech that's in it are designed for, until that time is right, it will shoot anything down. And the aliens, who are the same race of the alien who was down there, although, and I love this, even this new race that we've only had for like one episode, there's like two factions, because this is the evil faction who want to come and steal the technology. But
they still have pirates.
But it shoots them down with this giant laser beam, and it was a lot like the ship with the shadow ship, right, from Satan's Importance. And I was thinking, oh, is this like when that bad ship eventually shows up near the station and it has to be dealt with, is the purpose of this planet a defense? Is this like the thing that can take on that enemy? And I was sort of like, so it's hopeful in that sense that, oh, maybe there's like one weapon we have now on like the good team, if you will, to fight back.
They can like trick them into going into too close to the planet so that the planet will destroy them.
Well, no, because I think it won't have to be a trick. I think when the time comes, it won't have to be a defense thing. The planet will just do it.
Yeah, I expect that we'll get to see this technology in action. Like the time will come. It's not like when humanity is ready in centuries from now. It'll be like when you guys need us, we'll be here.
Yeah, I basically took it when the threat is big enough that the tech on this planet has to be what fights it. It'll come alive, and it won't be a case of like, oh, it'll just activate automatically. It'll be a case of no, maybe even Dral wakes up. Maybe we'll see him again. Maybe seasons from now or something. Yeah. So you had that.
Be interesting.
And that was very like hopeful, because it was kind of like this counterpoint to that threat. But the other part of it that I thought is even more fascinating is Londo, because the whole Satan's Importance with
Big
Londo.
Surprise.
No, shut up, right? This is a narrative thing. This is not a Londo's cool. Although I did laugh like a madman because Londo is talked into flying the ship that's taking Delenn, Dral, and the alien back down to the planet, and I think it's Ivanova on the deck is like, hey, like someone's flying down there from the station, and whoever's flying that ship is a madman, and it just cuts to Londo with this big grin on his face, and I thought it was funny. Anyway, but no, the serious point I'm trying to make here though is Londo is talked into sort of helping here, and because he saw the message last episode as well, and he also feels compelled to kind of like do something. He feels compelled, and it ties into his character. He talks about how he used to feel this thrill of doing something important. He talks about how early in his career he led this battle, and he was this fearless dude. He was this pilot, and he takes down, and he's very considerate. He's there to help. At the end of the episode, he's putting his arm around Delenn. It seems like he's trying to help and be not just be the greedy Londo that we know and love. And the scene at the end, or towards the end with Delenn, when she's talking about Londo and says, oh yeah, I owe him a big favour and he'll come for that debt someday, but I think he enjoyed it, and I think he felt like he'd done something important. And it ties back in it, because we were speaking last episode about why did we have that scene at the start with Delenn and Londo with Sinclair, where the subject of like Londo's like revenge and thirst for revenge, never wanting like peace with
he's drinking the margarita. And
I think this episode is also partly to show that there's still hope for him. Like, as much as he comes across as hating the Narn and always wanting to revenge, and of course, Satan's Importance had him kind of say that he wanted all this to the mysterious guy, and like this could all go bad, right? Like, he will be seduced, and things will get much darker perhaps before they get better. I do think this episode's saying there's hope as well. Like, he might actually make the right choices later eventually. No?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you'd have more than...
I was so excited to bring up the point, but but we think something sinister is going to happen because the guy made the deal with him, the what do you want guy, but you brought it up, so...
Oh, sorry.
It was nice. I'm glad you had your speech that I contributed nothing to.
But it was all part of the thought, though. So I'm sorry I hogged it all, but it was all part of the thought, which is that episode was very much about saying, hey, Londo and his pettiness and his thirst for revenge and his attitude are going to lead to a lot of bad things. It's almost, and then because this is the counterbalance to that, it almost makes me think that Londo's decision making is going to be really pivotal at some later in the series, at some point when he's going to be instrumental to either fixing what he's already played a part in, like setting up. If if things are going really bad and he's played a part in that, him almost making a redemptive choice might be what saves everything, or something, But it's building. I feel like I felt kind of the hand of the long-term storytelling really like, oh, this really does start to feel like it's all not coming together yet, but I can see all the pieces on the board starting to kind of form in a weird way with this.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. And Delenn still has some sort of connection where she still talks to, because Draw was like her mentor or something, and she's still like, at the end of the episode, she still like talks to him, and maybe he can hear her because he has like, there is a nice little note at the end of the episode where the alien who was in the technology before is talking about what his experience is going to be like when he's strapped in. His life will be prolonged, but he has like unlimited knowledge, and he can reach like the ends of the universe with it and see things that we can't. So it won't be like, even though it looks like a torture device, like he will be okay, which is a nice thought anyway. Like he's serving his purpose, and he's going to have like an experience that nobody else can have.
Also, I kind of love, I hope we see him again. I'm not going to look the actor up. I don't want to know. I don't want to know if we see the actor again. But even if we don't see him again, I do love the idea that he's always down there now. Like he's down there, and it gives the location of Babylon 5 some kind of importance now as well. They're above this planet that might end up saving them at some point.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, it is highly valuable. Like, sure, anybody who comes close will die, but it might still bring people who want to try.
Yeah, because the point is made as well that the defenses were actually kind of weak before, and that's how they could get. I would also argue as well the fact that the alien was calling out for help meant that he wasn't like letting the defenses do its full thing because he wanted to let someone in. Before, obviously there's a lot of CG in this show. We talk about it, and obviously it's very dated and it's got this charm of this 90s thing. I did want to mention one shot because there's a lot of like space battles in this one. There's a lot of like, you see that same shaft again on the planet. There's a lot of Londo flying the jet and all the rest of it. But there is one shot that made me laugh because it had like CG characters walking. It's in that big shaft with the tech, and it was particularly the Londo who was walking, and he was CG, but it's mid-90s CG that they did in an Amiga. And it like, people throw around the phrase whenever we're talking about CG in movies and TV shows, people throw around the phrase it looked like a video game a lot, but this genuinely looked like a video game from like the mid-90s with the motion of the walking, and it's got a charm. I like, it doesn't bother me. Like I smiled like a madman when I saw it, but I thought I had to mention this because it really stuck out, because they had, it's one thing to have these CG ships and all that are kind of dated, but this was like CG characters walking, and it looked kind of goofy, but yeah. I
thought the ships looked all right. Like the one shuttle, the purple one that they were flying, looked all right. It was funny to see, like, or to hear Ivanova say that pilot's a madman, and like the way he's piloting, and then it shoots to him like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. Like he's just turning a bit.
Yeah, and I think getting some of like his like Londo's, because we know how devout he is to the Centauri and his beliefs and all that, but I don't think we ever got the sense before. This is maybe the first time I've learned, at least if we had learned it, I'd forgotten that he was a pilot, that he can do this, that he is a great pilot. So that's
yeah,
neat.
I think one of the things that's brought up, like, why has he reached out to Londo and Dral and Sinclair, and Londo speculates because we know the importance of self-sacrifice. Like, he knows what he would be giving up if he goes down there and decides to stay, and is willing to do it, and is kind of excited about the idea. Of course, we know it's not going to be him. And I like the point that Delenn makes. Like, we don't tell Sinclair because, of course, Sinclair will do it. Like, that's just who he is.
Because Sinclair's searching for a purpose, and he needs to be the hero. So Sinclair, yeah, and the idea that she let her friend do it.
She knows that he has another purpose. We don't know what that is yet, but she obviously does.
But the idea that she let her friend do it to make sure Sinclair would still go on his path that he's on, that she thinks it's important. But I mean, even the Londo thing, that's a really good point to bring up. Actually, is that he was reached out to because this being saw him as a potential candidate to make this sacrifice, to be willing to be this, the brain of this computer. And I think that, again, the idea that there is potential in Londo for good, which is genius storytelling, I think, because we've talked so much about Londo, how much we love him, how entertaining he is, but he's kind of a dick, and that's part of his charm. But the idea that the potential for him to be the ultimate hero is there is either going to be really uplifting when it happens or soul crushing when it doesn't, and that's just good writing.
I think we've seen hints. Like, obviously we like Londo. He's a very charismatic character. It's easy to like, and for the most part he does good things. But he is tempted, like in Science Importance, he is tempted by the good old days, the way things used to be when the Centauri were on top. And I think it would be interesting if, like, the show throughout the series would, like, go back and forth of whether or not, like, which path he will take ultimately.
It kind of feels
because he
that
has
way.
the potential for both.
I think it's the idea that, yeah, he has that weakness, he has this attitude, but he does have a lot of good quality, and we've seen examples of that, you know, with not Jakar, definitely not Jakar. He's antagonistic to him at all times. But with Garibaldi,
we haven't seen him in a while. Come on, Jakar, come back.
But, you know, with Garibaldi, he's had a couple of sweet moments. He had at least one with Sinclair. You know, he's had a couple of moments where he's been kind of genuine and being like a friend to someone, or even with the young couple that he helped. You know, the you know, my shoes are too tight. You know, I've forgotten how to dance. That stuff.
And I've forgotten how to dance.
Yes. And I think even just, and this is going to sound like I'm really going into the deep stuff, or just a deep little not nitpick. Like, what's the opposite of a nitpick? Like a positive nitpick. But like when because Garibaldi like flies down after them and says, "Hey, they're going to need someone to bring them back up," or whatever he says. So he sort of goes down after them, and he follows them in. And even just the way that Londo, when he sees him, says Mr. Garibaldi, had this different tone to it, because he always says it in this sort of jovial, like, "Mr. Garibaldi," like. But he had this kind of sincere, like, "Oh, this is a very serious moment. Things are at stake." It feels like Londo, given the right influence and the right kind of motivation, actually could be this great person and could make these right choices. And, you know, elsewhere in the episode, we have this conflict. The thing that Sinclair's dealing with more than anything this episode is this Captain Pierce who shows up on the Earthship, and his first response to everything is, "Oh, we'll shoot everything. We'll kill. We'll show force against the other aliens." Because Sinclair's like, "Why did you show up with a big giant warship? Like, we were keeping it under wraps. No one knew anything was down there. Like, it was all being held very quietly." It's like, "Nah, show force. They didn't even know that they should be scared. So if they try anything, we'll be here to, you know, nuke them." Basically, is his attitude. And he wants to go down, and he has to lie about needing jammers and all these things. But yes, I thought that was fascinating. And then, of course, the alien race shows up, the pirates from this, you know, this native to this tech.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if they're pirates, but they're...
That's what you called them. That's what I'm calling them now.
They're space pirates.
Yeah, so that gets some space battles and shit, and you know, the idea that, because Sinclair and this Captain Pierce, they're kind of at odds most of the episode, because Pierce constantly wants
from
to...
the start.
Yeah. Which is actually why it feels quite, you know, it kind of sells the threat of these alien pirates when Sinclair agrees that, "Oh yeah, we'll join you and all of our ships will combine to like fight this threat." Because when he agrees to fight, you know it's because, okay, that is the only option. Like, they may actually be pushed to this. Whereas, because Pierce just keeps wanting to do it willy-nilly. But when Sinclair agrees, no, we will join you and we'll help you fight this fight, it's like, okay, things are serious now, and they might actually be a problem. And obviously in the midst of all this is also, we may have to evacuate the station, all 250,000 beings.
Yeah, they're given a timeline of like 12 hours before the ship, or the planet explodes, and we'll take the Babylon 5 with it. So, and which is not enough time to evacuate however many millions of people. Quarter of a million?
Quarter of a million, yeah. It was quarter of a million, they said, yeah.
Okay.
Which honestly sounds like a lot anyway. Like, I was like, really? Does it quarter of a million? You don't really get that sense of scale, but I mean, I'll accept it. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, they have to color code the different parts of the station, so now it's starting to make sense why.
It's the same shit as Star Trek, though. Like, you never really get the sense of the scale of like how many people are inside the Enterprise until they start saying it, or in recent finales show just like, okay, little sidetrack about the Discovery finale. Did you not think it was a bit silly that the second last episode of season 3 of Discovery, we did a Die Hard episode of Michael running around the ship in bare feet and going through vents, but then when we see was actually inside the ship. She wasn't barefoot,
but there was broken glass. We were expecting that she would be barefoot because there was broken glass and she was crawling around. Yes.
No, this is literally the opposite of what happened. She had no shoes. She was running around, and you joked in the review that or I joked in the review that she never found broken glass. We never did the Die Hard thing. She had bare feet.
Okay, whatever. What are you gonna say?
Yes, but then when we see, like, when they're doing the fight scene around the turbo lift, and we see this, like, city of lights and all this stuff, and I'm like, wait, how big is this goddamn shit? This is ridiculous.
Well, we've seen it before.
We have seen it before,
first season.
But I'd forgotten about it, and in the context of doing a Die Hard episode where she's just crawling around vents, as if there's not all this room. I don't know. It feels silly. It feels inconsistent. Anyway, back to Babylon 5, the better show. So, look, if you want to argue, original series or next gen or whatever, fine. But do not sit there and argue with me that the Star Trek Discovery is anything on this so far.
10 out of 10.
How dare you? How dare you? Tara has the Star Trek goggles on, the rose tinted goggles or whatever.
They're blue tinted.
The blue tinted.
Or I think yellow tinted, so they block blue light.
Well, they have to be because there's so much goddamn lens flares in modern Star Trek. But yes, so yeah, I mean, all the talk of the evacuations, all that stuff's good. I mean, hell, even Garibaldi going down after them, the idea that he feels that he needs to do something because he feels helpless because he's trying to get through to this woman that he loves on Mars and he can't. It's not happening. They're getting, Sinclair's trying to do what he can and stuff, and obviously by the end of the episode he gets to have this conversation with her. But at the time in the episode, he just feels like he needs to do something important. So even Garibaldi
he beats up a guy.
Has a purpose. Oh yeah, well that was before that. Yeah, that's and do you know what it is? This actor who's saying all this, like, racist rhetoric about those Martians, we pay taxes so they can have air filters and stuff, and they should not, because we've barely mentioned it, but on Mars there is this, like, this terrorist thing has happened, and there's the people storming the Mars capital. That's not what they called it, but that's what I'm calling it, given recent events. And there's there's gunfights and whatnot. But you have this guy with this rhetoric, and he's not a good actor, but because the scene feels so true to life, especially right now, the way he's talking about Martians, like, it felt like such a real scene. And I appreciated that Garibaldi actually did try to walk away. He sort of, like, after a couple of sentences, he realized where the conversation was going. He's like, "Oh, fine, okay, I'll go." And but the guy has to throw in one last thing about, we should just kill a bunch of them or something. He said something really extreme.
We should do what my grandfather did and nuke them from orbit so that they glow, and then you could see them at night.
Is that what he said?
I wanted to do the alien quote, yeah. Okay. But he says you nuke them till they glow and then shoot them at night.
Yes. And that obviously makes him snap, and he bangs his head off the counter a couple of times. Yeah,
both Garibaldi and Ivanova have done this with no consequences. Just throwing that out there.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point to be made. But they had it coming, all right? Had it coming. Well,
sure, but obviously I don't like races, but
yes,
it's definitely something that I also don't like police brutality.
Also, yes, that's also fair. He's not a functioning, like, security officer here, though. This is he happens to be in his uniform. This is more of a personal dispute, shall we call it?
Sure, that'll fly.
Maybe he's like
just like the ones that stormed the Capitol.
He's like Nicolas Cage in Con Air. His hand's a lethal weapon, so he has to be held to a higher standard than everyone else. Coming soon to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV is myself and Tara reviewing Con Air.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Looking for that. Actually, probably already be up by the time this goes out, but anyway. So Garibaldi gets to finally talk to this woman at the end of the episode. He gets his call through, and first of all, like, she is so out of his league. What is this casting? This woman is beautiful. What is this?
Maybe he's a charmer. I mean,
I was.
Maybe she's into pervy guys.
I was so proud of Garibaldi when I saw her. I was like, "Oh, Garibaldi!
No wonder he hasn't let go of her." Yeah.
You outdid yourself. Jeez.
The one that got away.
Yeah. And you can kind of see it coming when she's going to say she's married, because he's like, "Oh, I'll come and visit you. I'll take some leave and come and visit you in Mars." But she's married. She's pregnant. Thanks him for his concern that he's been, like, determined to find out if she's okay. And which is this is what leads to him being on just gazing at the stars at the end when Delenn comes to speak to him. And they have kind of this honest conversation. And I think obviously the show's very political and there's a lot of that going on, but there's also a lot of like how someone kind of lands on what their purpose is and what their beliefs are. And I think because Garibaldi seemed to be ready to just quit his job and go and be with her. He was ready to just give up Babylon 5 and go because he regretted not making that choice in the first place. And
I mean, he tells her that too.
Yeah. But now he's here, and it's like, and it almost like, I don't think the show is necessarily trying to imply destiny, but between them being above this planet, who might be kind of the big giant, it's basically a planet-sized Chekhov's gun. Let's call it what it is. It's a planet-sized Chekhov gun.
It's going to be our Deus Ex Machina. It is actually like a man in a machine too.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not actually out of nowhere though, is the thing. Because usually when you bring that up in storytelling, you're complaining that it's pulled out of your ass.
Sure, but like they have this thing that's gonna save them when everything's dire, and it's been long enough that we've forgotten about it.
That doesn't matter. It's been set up and payoff.
Okay, yeah. This is the claw from Toy Story 3. The claw.
You can critique a Chekhov's gun if you want, but I think a Chekhov's gun, by definition, is the opposite of a Deus Ex Machina. Regardless of the fact that there's literally a man in the machine. I mean, that part makes sense, but but so I was trying to get to though is the idea that is there some level of destiny at play here, that Sinclair's been led here, that Garibaldi's sort of still sticking around here even after all this? Is there some element of like destiny at play to make sure that people are here to possibly make the right decisions and like make sure everything doesn't end badly? Because everything's happened before. All of this has happened before. All of it will happen again. To pull a phrase from a different sci-fi show, but yeah, that was Battlestar Galactica, because I can see your eyes. I can see your eyes like looking like, which one?
I've never
which
watched
one?
that show.
Have I seen it? Have I seen it? I'm not recognizing it.
Nope, it's not Sliders.
No, I've not seen Sliders, so it's definitely not Sliders. They're not Sliders. There was one Talia scene in this episode, but didn't really have much of a plot. She was just kind of there for someone else's scene.
Yeah, she was there for Garibaldi, and she didn't have her bangs.
Still, no, but she didn't have her in the last episode either.
No, they were swept. They were carefully coiffed into the rest of the hair so that it's invisible. I know all the tricks.
Well, they were invisible to me. I saw no bangs, so but I will accept your expertise on the bangs hiding. Stealth bangs.
I've made that mistake more than once.
Now, speaking of bangs, let's talk about booms, because I love this callback. It's from Ivanova. Because if you remember last episode, the part 1, Garibaldi tried to ask Sinclair for some info, what's going on down the planet. And this time he comes to Ivanova and he's like, hey, rumor is you've brought someone up from that planet, and rumor is there might be something valuable down there. What's going on? And she's like, do you really want to know? And she just sort of and this is, at this point in the episode, she knows that they may have to evacuate the station, that a lot of people are possibly going to die, that they're in this political problem with this badmiral. He's not an admiral, but I'm calling him a badmiral because that's essentially what he is, Captain Pierce. And she leans in and just yells boom in his ear like 4 times, and it just made me laugh because of course there was that speech from a few episodes ago.
There's always a boom.
There's always a boom. Boom tomorrow.
Maybe not today, but there's always a boom.
So I like that. So naturally, Captain Pierce.
She gets to bring up that she's Russian again.
She does, yes. Captain Pierce does sort of leave in amicable terms because Sinclair basically gets official sort of word from Earth that this is his jurisdiction, this part of space around the station. He gets to make the calls.
Also, he watched like 3 ships get vaporized by the planet. Like, I'm pretty sure he's taking the threat seriously now.
Oh yeah, Captain Pierce, yeah. He's like, you know what? I'm good. Let's just go. Let's just leave. Yeah, before the planet vaporizes. Yeah, that's a good point. No, I kind of loved this episode. I like part 1. I think as per usual, part 2s tend to be better than part 1s just because they have all the payoffs and all the meaning of what the episode's doing kind of finally comes into it. But I think all of the thematic ideas and the idea of this being the counterpoint to Signs of Importance, I think is really great. And it makes me wonder, like, what are we even going to do for the finale? Because I feel like this is a really weird situation where they've given me these 2 episodes, technically 3 episodes because it's a 2-parter, but these 2 stories that have so perfectly kind of set up 2 sides of where things might go, and this push and pull that we're going to be playing with. And on top of all just the fun stuff of like, okay, who are these aliens? Like, what is the, why did they build this? All these types of things that are just fun to think about.
I do love that in science fiction, like where you get to a place where you have no idea what the history was, but there was clearly some civilization that lived and died out like millennia ago.
I love that too. Yeah.
Also a very Hyperion thing.
And it ties in again to the beings that that Jacquard told us about. We saw that that Sinclair's girlfriend almost,
the one that gives him comfort.
Yes. So I think the world building with all that stuff is fantastic, and the political stuff.
Is this our first two-parter?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean, you could count the gallery, I suppose, but that was just made as one big episode as a pilot, so not really.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a delay.
Did you interrupt?
Yeah, you're going to say something about the politics.
Oh, okay. Well, it flowed naturally enough. No, I was going to say, yeah, within the other part of the episode was the politics with Sinclair having to manage this other guy from Earth and what they wanted to do, and all the rest
Canada.
of it. Yeah. And also this mutually assured sort of destruction kind of idea of like the council will make sure that none of the races get it because everyone else is screwed if they do. So it's in everyone's interest for no one to have it.
Yeah, apparently it is some. Yeah, it's some technology that nobody is ready for. Not just humans.
I do wonder though, where do the Vorlons land in all this? Are they as advanced as these beings, or are they somewhere in between all the other races and these beings who are this, powerful?
Maybe the Vorlons do not care about this technology. Maybe they're beyond it.
Sure. Yeah, I just mean in general though, like where are they on the spectrum? Because we know they're more advanced, and they're very opinionated about what humans are ready for, as we've seen. So I am curious about more of that stuff. But no, this was wonderful. I mean, I liked part one, but I think this one really just like everything with them down on the planet and making this choice. It felt like an important moment in the show.
Yeah, and it was nice to have a good guest star.
Sure. Because we've never had a good guest star, you're right. They've all been bad. Especially episode 13.
How dare you. I mean, you know what I mean. We get some dodgy ones.
Yeah, we've had some dodgy ones. But yeah.
I was a little disappointed we didn't get our archaeologist guy from the last one. He was kind of good.
I think both guest stars in this were good though. But both Captain Pierce and I think Dral. I mean, Dral's very Shakespearean, like a lot of the guest stars have been, but it kind of fits the Minbari's way of. Yeah,
definitely.
Their mythology.
They're a bit ethereal and big.
That makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for a lot of them. But yeah. So no, this is a wonderful episode. I have. Basically, that one really funny shot of like the CG Londo walking is like my only real complaint. Everything else I really, really, really liked, and even that was good in a funny way. Like I was like, this is cute.
Yeah, I mean, again with the whole beating up people in the bar, like I guess it's okay, but you probably should just talk things out or leave and not go straight to violence.
Sure. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, and to be fair, Sinclair comes to see him and brings it up, and he says, "You're lucky he doesn't want to like pursue this or press charges." Which I mean,
probably afraid. Press charges against the police. Who's going to be on his side?
But I mean, it is addressed that he's not supposed to be doing that. At least, like, I mean, even if it's not harsh enough or it's not like made a big plot point enough, but it is at least brought up. It's not.
I know. It's a '90s thing.
Yeah. They're not trying to suggest that it's okay for him to just go around doing this at the very least, even if it's not made as strongly as it could have been. But no, wonderful stuff. I'm very excited about the scope of what we're doing. I feel there's a lot.
We're almost done with season 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of big ideas, and everything I've heard is that season 1 is very much a prologue to the real story, which is seasons 2 through 4, and that's kind of where all the real stuff happens.
I mean, yeah, this whole season has been like, well, what are the Minbari doing? Like, they keep talking about Grey Council and Sinclair's role in the prophecy. But I'd like to know a bit more instead of just like teases of something big is going to happen one day. So it'd be cool if we get like some answers.
And I think that's what's interesting. Other than obviously Delenn mentioning that she wants Sinclair to go on his path, Sinclair's like future and what he's going to do had very little to do with most of what this episode is. And even even Sane's Importance was more about the future of like all these species and that whatever wars they might have someday, whatever force from beyond is trying to manipulate them through Mr. Whatever, I forgot his name, but the guy from Sane's Importance, like all that stuff feels separate from that. So from an encouraging point of view, knowing that the lead actor is going to have to like leave and be replaced and maybe truncate his story a little bit, all this other stuff separate from him feels like it's a big stuff and it's all set up really well, and I'm excited about all that stuff. So
yeah, I'm curious on how that's going to end, because clearly they were building that up for something bigger. So if we get like season 2 episode 1, like, oh, Sinclair had to do this for the Minbari, that was his role the whole time, or no, Delenn is going to be like disappointed because she was prophesizing. Wait, let me finish. I'm speculating.
I know, but I'm telling you something we know. I'm trying to tell you what we know.
What? All right, tell me.
He does come back for an episode in season 2 to wrap up his plot. So I don't think when we
start.
I
didn't know that.
I've mentioned it before. I mentioned it back in like episode 1.
Oh, back in episode 1, sure.
I've definitely brought this up. The point I'm making is, though, it's not going to be like we start season 2. I mean, they might have to casually mention why he's not there now, but it's not going to be like,
yeah. But if they were building up for something like really big that's going to take up like the whole series, and instead of like, well, now we have to put it into one episode.
Sure.
And okay, so he's completed his journey. So is Delenn like, and the Minbari going to have like a new thing now, or is it still going to continue on from that? Like, does she have a purpose to be on Babylon 5? That's
a good question. These are all good questions. The only thing I was countering was when you suggested that they'll just casually say, oh, he went off to the Minbari and rode off into the sunset in like episode 1 of season 2. That's all I was trying to counter, because I'm like,
well, yeah, or like maybe Delenn will be disappointed, like maybe things, because they had this big plan for Sinclair that obviously they wouldn't be able to finish since he left the show, that maybe she was wrong about his destiny, and maybe like she'll have an identity crisis, like, or
that completely depends on how they wrap up his plot in the episode.
Exactly. I'm very curious.
Because he makes fulfill his destiny just in a quicker way than he would have done before.
Maybe.
But yeah, maybe that'll make Delenn question things. Maybe that'll actually create some interesting story for her that wouldn't have been there otherwise. I mean, you may be right.
Right, because mostly her story is, I've brought my interesting friend over who's really not that interesting, or like her stories around Sinclair. And that's it. So I would like to see more with her, and if Sinclair's out of the picture, then I want to see some existential crisis going on.
But there you go. That is Babylon 5. It was a fantastic episode, and I'm excited to see how we wrap up the season now. But as the tradition goes, I expect there might be a couple of weaker episodes before the last couple that are presumably better. Well, that's the 19 one. Yeah, I expect maybe a weak one and then a couple of good ones. That's my expectation.
We don't have that many left.
Based on nothing but just pulling it out my ass. Yeah, we have 3. Hence my one bad one and 2 good ones. So, all right, there you go. That's Babylon 5. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And Tara will tell you about how you can support us financially.
Yeah, check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these episodes 1 week early. So check that out. Thank you.
There you go. So thank you very much for joining us once again. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.